I say that hustle is just laziness in disguise. It doesn't take any thinking or creativity to just do a lot of activity. The hardest thing to do is actually to stop and think about what actually moves the needle in my business.
Graham Cochrane.
Graham Cochrane.
Graham Cochrane.
Multi-seven-figure entrepreneur, TEDx and keynote speaker, best-selling author. He has the book, How to Get Paid for What You Know.
Today, he's here to share how understanding your unique value is crucial in the business landscape.
It's a great way to succeed in business is to figure out who you are uniquely and then exploit that uniqueness.
And with that comes the power to do less, yet achieve more.
Because then you can dump 80% of what you're doing and still make the same amount of money.
How did you determine what you wanted your business to look like?
Over the years, I just got really fascinated with how much can I grow this thing while working less? To make a lot of money and work less, you need some form of leverage, and that's either going to be, I thought it would take me 3 years to double my income. I did it in 18 months. I bet I could double it again.
What separated the 6 and 7 figure entrepreneurs from the 8, 9 figure and beyond? The Life Edge is all about helping people find and discover what their edge in life is, what makes them unique. So what would you say is your edge in life?
Oh man, it's hard to pinpoint one thing. I mean, like, everything that's been successful in my life is like the result of a lot of things and a lot of help and a lot of people. But one of the things that I think I pride myself in that I have heard from other people and across multiple businesses and different disciplines is that I bring a lot of encouragement. So I'll give you specifics. Like, I'm in the content space. If you want to dumb it down to say I'm a content creator, I think there's more than that, but I create a lot of content, a lot of educational material. And one of the things I feel like sets me apart from other people is, and that has helped, is that I'm not trying to just convey information. I'm trying to actually encourage the people who are listening or watching to believe that they can do it too. So there's like a flavor of how I teach, which is not just here's how to do X, or here's how I'm so smart, here's how I do this, or here's the best way to do this. And it's not even just to get people to click. It's really if they click and they're engaging in the content, I want them to walk away from the video or the podcast or the book or the article or the email, whatever it is, not only having learned something that hopefully was valuable, but actually feeling like, I think I could do this. Like, my goal is to always empower and encourage the person to believe that they can go do it. Because the world is so like the opposite of that. There's a giant black hole of encouragement. We're missing encouragement. Everyone is critical. It's a rough place out there. So I always try to sneakily leave people better than I found them by not just teaching them or getting them to opt in or to do the next step in my business. It's just really, if they walk away a little more encouraged, then I feel like their experience with my brand is a positive one. And they may not know why they like me, but they'll like me and want to come back for more.
Why do you think people struggle with identifying something like you just mentioned? You obviously were very clear on what you understand is what sets you apart, what makes you unique. Why do you think a lot of people struggle with being able to determine that for themselves?
I mean, I think most people don't do enough self-reflection because it's hard, sometimes not fun, and we're too busy. So the real thing here is that no one knows who they are. No one knows, like, we think we do, but we really don't know ourselves very well. And admittedly, I don't either. I'm on a constant journey of learning about myself. And, I do that through a variety of means, hiring coaches, journaling. Like, it's funny, I used to hate journaling and make fun of people that journal, but it's been the most helpful practice. The last 2 years, I've been very consistent with it almost daily. Of when I write down my thoughts, and then I see my thoughts on paper, I then better understand myself. It's like a mirror. Like, I don't know what I look like until I see myself in a mirror. And it's like, oh no, that's where my eye is actually that shape, or my ears are really that big. I think I remember, but I don't. And so journaling is like that self-reflection. Like, that's powerful. So I think people just don't know who they are because they don't take the time to do self-discovery. And it's easier just to see what everyone else looks like, what everybody else is doing, what everybody else wants. If you're talking about business, it's like, how does she run her business? What is he doing with his content? It's just a cop-out to just look and just do what they're doing. It takes a little bit more work to look inward. But I think the rewards are worth it if you figure out like what makes you tick, what you want out of business, what you want out of life. It kind of gives you the freedom to show up as yourself and to be comfortable in your own skin. And ironically, it's going to be your strategic play as well. It's a great way to succeed in business is to figure out who you are uniquely and then exploit that uniqueness in the service of others and in the pursuit of your goals, because you can win a whole lot of different ways, and you might as well just win the way you're designed.
Mm-hmm. You've been in the online education space now for almost 14 years, close to 14 years. And your recent book teaching people how to make money for what they know, to become 6-7 figure entrepreneurs, but actually not doing what we live in this hustle culture where everybody's out grinding 100 hours a week, 80 hours a week, 90 hours a week, not having time for family and life. And you've somehow managed to go a different direction. You figured out how to still have the successful business, yet spend time with your family, and have time for you and make life an enjoyable process. That path of like not conforming and walking away, how were you able to like visualize it and not do what everybody else did? Not go, right now you could say the Alex Hormozy way or some of these people where it's like you just have to grind.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think there's a lot of things at play here, Chris. Like, one is my life story, right? Like, I got married really young. I was 22 when I got married, and I had my first child at age 26. And that's when I lost 2 jobs during the Great Recession and burned through savings, and we were on food stamps for 18 months. Like, my life was falling apart at that time period in my life where I'm 26, but I already have a wife and a baby. Not everyone's story is that, right? Like, not everyone has that kind of responsibility at that young of an age. And so I didn't have a business as a single guy. I didn't have a business without kids, right? I've always had a family and a mortgage and a wife while I've had my business, which means I've just had different limitations from day one. I think a lot of the hustle culture is propagated for a lot of reasons. One of them is I say that hustle is just laziness in disguise. It's really easy to hustle. It doesn't take any thinking or creativity to just do a lot of activity. It's the laziest thing you could do, is just work all the time. The hardest thing to do is actually to stop and think about what actually moves the needle in my business and what is just a bunch of activity that makes me feel like I'm doing something or look important. And that takes some initial work to figure that out. But the rewards are worth it, because then you can dump 80% of what you're doing and still make the same amount of money, if not more. So part of it is just people are lazy and they haven't realized there's a better way. And then part of it is, I think, if you're building a business as a single woman or man and you're young, or you're married but there's no kids, or there's no major financial responsibilities outside of just paying your bills and taking care of yourself, like you have nothing else to really apply your time to. And I say that out of experience. When I talk to people, they're like, well, why would I want to work less? I like working. I've got nothing else to do, is what a lot of them will say. And I just never had that experience. So I had to make time for family. I was helping start a church at the time, so I was like the volunteer music guy, which means I was giving up a lot of my weekends. So like I had a lot of responsibilities, so I had less time to give my business. So it was kind of just the nature of how my business started. And I'm grateful for that, because those limitations, there aren't really limitations at all. You can literally do whatever. Like, you can build an incredible business in 20 hours a week if you want to. I had 32. I gave myself 4 days a week, 9 to 5. So I had 32 hours a week was all I had when I started with nothing, right? So I was limited to 4 days, but I think I could have done it if I only had 2 days a week. I just didn't know a lot of the things I know now. So part of it was my story. Part of it is I early on stumbled into digital products, and that's a huge reason why. I mean, when you need some form of leverage, right? To make a lot of money and work less, you need some form of leverage, and that's either going to be digital tools that will do the selling for you, or people, right? Every business, like you're always the bottleneck as the CEO until you leverage something else, a tool or a team. Like, you need something to leverage, and I've done a bit of both. But most of my leverages come from tools, because my business is digital in nature. But that's been a real boon for me, is that like, wow, I figured out early on that, man, I can reach a lot of people through YouTube. I can sell them a digital course or membership that can scale. I don't have to work more hours to sell more product. I could sell 1 million copies a minute if enough people were interested. It's a factor of all those things put together. But what's interesting is over the years, I just got really fascinated with how much can I grow this thing while working less? I wanted to get to like the center of the Tootsie Roll Pop. I wanted to get to the center of like what makes my business run and what's not necessary. I just wanted to know. I was blogging twice a week and doing a video once a week. So I had 3 new pieces of content every week for 4 years. And then I was like, do I have to keep producing 3 pieces of content a week? What would happen if I dropped it down to 2? So I tested, and then, traffic didn't drop at all. Opt-ins didn't drop at all. Okay, what would happen if I dropped it down to 1? Nothing dropped, So I was trying to like remove things. I just wanted to know, because I just hate waste. I hate like doing something I don't need to do. I'd rather be at the movies in the middle of the day, or reading a book, or swimming in the pool, or taking my kids to school. So I just wanted to at least know how lean can I get it. And so I became like a mad scientist trying to figure that out. And what's beautiful is I've seen how needed that is in today's culture, where there is a lot of, and Alex Hormozi is brilliant. And I've had his wife Layla on my podcast, and she's brilliant. I think the world of them in terms of their genius and their ability to build businesses. I think we just have different worldview and different value system in terms of what we care about outside of business. And so they're doing what they want to do, which I applaud them. I think that's what everyone should do, is build a business that you want to have. Me with kids and community and like other interests and my personality, I don't want to work all the time. I want to always be working on cool things, and I might get bored with some things, so I might start new things that aren't needed just because I'm a creative at heart. But I still know my limits and what's a win for me. And I think a lot of other people they found that message refreshing.
How did you determine what you wanted your life to look like? How did you determine what you wanted your business to look like? Because for me, when I pay attention and follow these people who, Alex, Layla, they're fantastic with what they do. Cody Sanchez, another great person. These people are all great at what they do. But then I put that as the pedestal of that's what I then have to work towards. How did you determine then what you wanted? I guess is the best question.
That's the most important question. What do you want? And I don't think most people actually know. Going back to the self-discovery thing, I don't think most people know. I wrote a new book that's coming out this year called Rebel. Find Yourself by Not Following the Crowd. Why this book? This is the problem, is that people have no idea who they are, what they want, and they're frustrated. And they're frustrated because they think they want something and they're not getting it, or they think life should be a certain way because someone told them or whatever, and it's either working but it wasn't satisfying. Like, I got that, I did what they said, but that didn't satisfy me. Or they're not able to get something that they feel like they should have, but they're operating out of alignment with the way they're designed, and that's why they're frustrated. So the way I think about it is, to get visual, and then also be a roundabout way to answer your question. In my pantry maker, I have a coffee maker. It's an espresso machine, automatic espresso machine, right? It's great. You put whole beans in the top, and it's got a little blade that grinds it up fresh every time, and then it spits out an espresso or an Americano or whatever you want. Right next to my espresso maker, I have a blender, and my wife makes smoothies and green juices and all the healthy stuff, right? It's as if my espresso maker were to look at my blender one day and say, I want to make a smoothie. Yeah. Everybody loves smoothies, right? I could make a smoothie. Why can't I make a smoothie? I'm just like the blender, right? We both have a hole in the top of us where you put food in. We both have a blade that chops things up. We're basically the same. Let me try to make a smoothie. And it sounds ridiculous because you and I both know that if you were to put some frozen strawberries and bananas and some protein powder and almond milk in the top of my espresso maker, shove it down and push the button, like, two things are going to happen. At best, what's going to come out of it's going to be disgusting. It's going to suck. And at worst, and what's likely going to happen is the machine's going to break. It's going to break because it wasn't designed to make smoothie. It's ridiculous. But yet this is exactly how we're living our lives, especially in the entrepreneurial side of things. We are designed a certain way as humans, and therefore our business should be designed around that because we're all different. But we're not doing that. We're comparing ourselves to the Alex Hormozis, the Cody Sanchez's, all the people, even the Elon Musks, or whoever you want to pick. Like, I need to be like that person. run my business like that because they're having success. And there's something in them that we see that we like because it's beautiful. What we're seeing, hopefully, is them operating in alignment with the way they're designed. And that's a beautiful thing to behold. So we can see it and go, I like that. But that doesn't mean that's the way we're designed. And so take that back to the point of the book. My whole point of this book is to help you figure out who the heck you are so that you can design your life, including your business, around that. Because if you do that, you're going to have more success, you'll be more satisfied, and you'll be of more service to other people because you're doing life and business your way, the way you were meant to do it. And that does take some self-discovery and reflection, which the book is a giant coaching session, basically walking you through these 5 sort of elements in the framework, and there's exercises, but it is deep work. But once you figure it out, then it becomes a lot simpler. So to your question, I was figuring this out I didn't realize this is what I was doing over the last 14, 15 years, but I knew intuitively I have certain values. I know what I want out of life. I know how I want my days to look, what I want to be doing on the weekends. And so it's like I had these big rocks, as it were, in place already. And the business was, to me, a vehicle for just existing. When you're broke, you just need to make money. And so it was very simple. It's like, I just need this business to work, but it has to fit within my life. Because maybe I just had some wisdom in my mind from day one that, like, the business is never meant to be the thing. Like, my life is the thing. The business is just a thing to support my life and serve my life, not the other way around. And so I think when we get either excited about business or we feel the pressure for the business to work, we will give up everything at the altar of the business. And I know what that feels like when you have to make money. Like, I get that. But we'll go too far, and then we might even have quote-unquote success monetarily with the business, but we wonder why we're hating life or we're burning out. There's so many YouTubers right now and online business owners that are burning out because they put the business first and they didn't look out for themselves and they didn't really align it with the way they're wired. So yeah, I think I intuitively knew some of the things I wanted, but even I fall prey to when the business hits a level, I'll be happy when it's 6 figures. Now, maybe I could do multi-6. Maybe I could do $500,000. Maybe I could do $1 million. Maybe I could do 2. And then I'm looking at other people. It's natural, right? So it's like a recentering. Who am I? How am I designed? What do I want out of life? What do I need? What does my family need? And how could I orient my business around those things? And that's why you're going to see so many different business owners doing different things, because hopefully they're operating out of that alignment.
I love that concept that you talked about, because I think so many of us, and I fall prey to this all the time, get this wrong, is that your business is there to serve your life. And I get so many times I get that backwards, where everything is about the business, and then I forget that I am a living being who has a life and to go do the things that actually fulfill me. Not that my business doesn't fulfill me, but even in a business, there's things you got to do that aren't fulfilling, right? And I find myself doing more and more of those rather than focusing on how is this then supporting where I really want to go in life. So thank you for that. You also mentioned that there was a framework within this new book, Rebel. Would you be willing to unpack that a little bit?
Yeah. So the idea is, like, how can if I was going to write a book and put together in one book, like I said, it's almost like a coaching session in a book. What would I walk people through to figure out who they are so they can then go after the life they want? And when I talk about life in the book, there's 6 core areas of life the way I chop up life, right? So you could apply this to your relationships, to your finances, to your work or career or business, to the way you manage your time, to the way you're looking at your health, both physical and mental, and then your spiritual life, right? So you should be driving all 6 of those areas. Like, you get to determine how you spend your time and your money and what you want your relationships to look like. So all that to say, like, when I think about this book, it's really holistic for your whole life. But the framework is an acronym for Rebel, to make it easy to remember. The first step, R, is to resolve to dream again. It's like a stake in the ground of, like, I am going to get back to dreaming. And this is language it's either misused or not used enough. A lot of us are, we make fun of dreaming, or like that's for kids, or many times, like for me, it was like I had a dream. My dream was to be a rock star, to like literally, I made a run at trying to make a record, get signed. And that when that dream fell apart, I was so burned and embarrassed and like disappointed that it didn't happen, because I told everybody it was going to happen. And when it didn't happen, I was like, I'm never going to dream again. That was stupid. Forget that. I'm just going to put my head down and get a normal job, pay my taxes, and be a normal person, and be happy with what I have. And that didn't work very well. It's just because that's the way we're wired. I feel like the way God wired us is with dreams and desires. They're giant clues. Like, the point isn't to just go follow all your dreams. I have a lot of dreams that I may not actually realize, but the dreams are really great indicators as to what I value, how I'm wired. So we need to pay attention to them. So the whole first part of the Rebel framework is resolving to dream and get honest about what do I dream about? What do I dream of having, doing, being? Like, sometimes people haven't thought about this stuff explicitly in years, if ever. And so I walk them through an exercise in the book on how to like list out your 50 dreams and then how you narrow it down. And there's some deeper work underneath there. But it's like, sometimes the hardest thing for people is to get honest about what they want. There's a lot of shame around wanting, depending on your upbringing or your culture. Like, you shouldn't think about those things. It's just about the utilitarian. What do you need? And the beautiful thing about this exercise is, like, no one's going to see this. This is just for yourself. And this no one's going to judge it. You don't have to defend what you want. By definition, it's a want. It's not a need. Like, we don't need anything on a list of wants, right? There's a very small list of things we actually need to exist. We need like food, water, maybe clothing. That would be helpful. And shelter would be really nice, but you can actually exist without shelter. But like I'm being really like crude here. Like, you don't need much to exist, but all these other things are wants. And so getting honest with what you want, so that for the purpose of paying attention to how you're wired. And I'll give you an example. Like, when I dream, I don't dream of being a billionaire or having this massive company. Like, I don't picture that. But I have friends that they literally dream, they want to be a billionaire or have $1 billion company, a company that's worth $1 billion. And then they have their own reasons why they want that. It means something to them specifically. I've never dreamt of that. I want to be as bothered as little as possible by my business, and only do work I really want to do. I want to enjoy waking up in the morning, and I want to enjoy where I go to work and what the environment is like, and I want to do work that's creative and fulfilling. I've learned that I like projects. I don't like to do the same thing every day. There's a few things that I do consistently, but even then I get bored, so I like to start and complete projects. I have certain financial goals that I want, but I don't need to justify them to anybody. They're just things that I want. And so all of that is instructive. Again, it's a giant clue as to how you're wired. And it's the first clue. It's the first big step, because you can't make good decisions, right, until you know who you are and what you want.
I love that, because when I think back to my journey and how I ended up where I am, I was working by trade, I'm a welder, right? And I was doing that for 13, 14 years, became a manager. And I saw the rest of my life, like, if I carry this out for the next 30 years, what does my life look like? And I did not want to get to the end of that road. And I had to make a shift, had to make like a giant shift, but I had no clue what I wanted to do in life. And so I had to start out by learning how to dream again. Like, if I was 18 again and the world was my oyster, what direction am I going to go? It took a good year of like, what am I going to do again? And even after that, I still did not have the direction where I wanted to go. I just knew I was headed down the right path towards finding that, because for me, it took some doing rather than just, I had a dream, now I know which direction I want to go. I had to go start experimenting a little bit, figuring out what I liked, didn't like. And so I can relate so much to the dreaming stage. So then what then becomes the next step after dreaming?
Yeah, so that's great. I mean, so dreaming is that 30,000 foot view of like, what do I want? And it's just data points, Like, one of my dreams is to be in a Star Wars movie. Like, that's not going to be my career probably, but like, that would be freaking awesome, right? To be in a Star Wars movie. So I don't know what I'm using that data point for, but it's there, a data point. But so I love the exercise, because you just get to be selfish. You get to think about yourself, sometimes for many people for the first time. But you start with the dreams, go through the exercises in the book. But then step 2 is the E in Rebel, is establish the outcomes you want in life. So this is kind of what you were starting to allude to when you reimagined, like, what am I doing with my career? You start high level with dreams, like, what do I care about? What do I like? What fires me up? And then the E is like, okay, let's bring that down to the ground, from 30,000 feet down to the ground. Give me a specific vision of what life should look like according to me, like the way I would like it to look. And one of the most helpful questions I've ever been asked by this, and one of my coaches, Rich Litvin, asked me this, and it stuck with me, is it's basically the 3-year question. 10-year dream is sometimes too far away for people. Like, you're going to be a totally different person in a decade. And depending on your personality, if you have a 10-year vision, it's so far off, there's no urgency to take action, and you might just be like, I'm not going to do anything. I got plenty of time, if that's your personality. 1 year is like, it's exciting because you might get some momentum, but it's hard to get your whole life completely turned around in 12 months. So you could get easily disappointed and discouraged. I found that 3 years is the perfect sweet spot of a vision point, because it's close enough to your actual life that you can kind of imagine what life is going to be like in 3 years. It's not too far away from who you are now or your season of life. And yet 36 months is a lot of time to get some stuff done and completely change your life. So the question is very simple. It's, imagine, Chris, you and I bump into each other. It's 3 years from now, and we bump into each other at an airport or something. And you're like, oh my gosh, Graham, how are you? I'm like, Chris, how are you, bro? And you're like, bro, it's been the best 3 years of my life. I'm like, oh my gosh, Chris, that's amazing. The best 3 years of your life. Tell me about that. Why is that? What's happened? Like, what would you be telling me? Like, that's what you want to journal out, is like, what would be true? Or what would have to be true for you to tell me 3 years from now that it's been the best 3 years of your life? Very open-ended by design. Mm-hmm. Could be family, work, and money, anything, your body, your health, like whatever. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But what's made it the best 3 years of your life? And that's where you have bullet point, like, well, you know, my marriage feels like this, and we finally had a baby, and we with this, and then I'm making this amount of money, and we were able to take this trip to Santorini. And like, you can get real specific if you imagine, if I could script the next 3 years the way I would want it to go, knowing that like life is largely out of our control. But the point is, again, we're trying to understand ourselves better. What would have to be true for that to be true? And for people, this takes, again, the dreams that may be up in the clouds down to like, okay, what does life look like 3 years from now for it to be the best 3 years of my life? This is, I think, one of the most fun exercises to do.
And the concept of 3 years is not something I've ever thought about. For me, it's always been 1 year and 10 year, and never really anything in between. But it obviously bridges the gap a bit, because 10 years, it's hard to stay motivated when you're thinking 10 years out. And so I could see 3 years being a really good stopgap to continue to set that motivation. But then it becomes, once you get to that 3 years, it becomes like a checkpoint for your 10-year goal to then keep you even more motivated towards that 10-year goal.
Exactly, because 3 years, that's exactly the point, is close enough that the motivation is there. Like, dude, I can see the payoff. I could, if it's like, I want to double my business in 3 years. I want to have $100,000 saved up in cash in 3 years, or I want to buy my first house in 3 years, like whatever that is. You might think that's even too long. You might be able to tighten it up, but like it's within sight. And then the other point of it is, to your point, is you get to 3 years in, life has happened. 36 months have happened. So like your next 3 year vision might be slightly different, you know?
Yeah.
Especially if I have found this to be true. I undershoot my goals because I've had such small vision when I started. I never was a business owner. I never dreamed I'd have much money, or I just had small vision. And depending on where you come from, I didn't come from a big vision family with like, you know, chase your dreams, or I had no entrepreneurs in my family. It was very much just middle class, be an engineer, be a teacher, you know, live your life. So I've learned that the moment I've had some success, or I've reached what I thought was a big dream, I realize how small it actually is. And my mind's opened up. I'm like, you know what? I did X. I bet I could do Y. And that's human nature, right? Like you get a taste of some accomplishment. Like if do you have kids, Chris?
No, we don't have kids yet.
Okay. Well, when you do, if you have kids, or if you've ever worked with any kids or have like nieces or nephews, and they get a taste of like accomplishing something, putting together their first Lego set, you know, the small one. If they thought it was impossible, they put it together. Once they put it together, like, oh, dude, I could do a bigger one. You know, what's a 500-piece one or a 1,000-piece one? Or if they ride their bike on training wheels, eventually they're like, okay, I could try it without the training wheels. Like it's so beautiful to see that like they do something they thought was hard or impossible, and then they're like, oh no, let's go do the next hard thing. Like this is the way humans were made, is to go accomplish and go climb new mountains. And so the point is, every 3 years, you do your 3-year vision. A large part of it comes true in 3 years, but just by virtue of being intentional and having direction. Most people are completely directionless. And the whole premise of the book Rebel is that the conformity is the enemy. We're all just floating in a river. It's going somewhere. That's the current of conformity. You could do nothing and you'll be taken somewhere, wherever culture's taking you. Is that really where you want to end up? And to be a rebel is to swim against the tide and figure out what you want. It's not a specific direction I'm encouraging people to go to. It's the direction you want to go. You have to figure that out for yourself. And so by virtue of just becoming intentional, 3 years from now, you're going to be a lot further down than you thought you were. And once you get there, you're going to be like, I thought it would take me 3 years to double my income. I did it in 18 months. I bet I could double it again. Or I thought this would be an achievement. Now I want to do this. And it's not about just achieving more, but it's just opening your mind to probably a bit of a turn in terms of your 3-year vision, where if you had a 10-year vision, I bet it's still way too small. So make it 3, get to those 3 years, and then you're going to have a bigger vision for the next 3, and then the next 3. And it allows you to keep it current with your life. Like your life circumstances might change in 3 years. You might have a kid, and then that would change your vision a little bit, right? You might be living in a different city or state. That might change your vision a little bit. Your career might change. Mine certainly did. Didn't mean my life was over, but it meant like, okay, I have to have a new vision. Let's build a business now instead of working for this other company that I thought I was going to do well in. And so that's the power of the 3-year vision. I think this is where people start to better understand themselves. When I take my private clients through this, like it's kind of mandatory before we have our first call for them to do this exercise, the 3-year exercise. It's fascinating the insights they get on their own before our very first call of what I thought I wanted, but then I did this exercise and I realized what I really want is this. And that gives them so much more direction for even our coaching together, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so what I love about what you just said is that even in my life, as I've made these changes, because I made my transition from leaving my job into starting my own business and venturing off, the goals that I was writing down back then when I first left were so small, and I achieved them faster than I thought I was going to where like the visions I had to then start figuring out how to dream bigger, just like you said, because as you start to check these boxes, you're like, wait, I am capable of so much more. So as we start to move into the rest of the framework, would you be willing to kind of go through and explain the next steps from here on out?
Yeah, absolutely. So we resolve to dream again. We establish the outcomes we want in life. Get that vision clear. The B is Rebel is to break the negative thoughts, habits, and patterns. We all have an inner story that is largely driving the way we show up in life and driving a lot of the results. So we don't really realize it. So I walk people through an inner story audit in the book of how to unpack what you're thinking and sort of dismantle some harmful, negative mental scripts. And that way, once we quiet all that junk, we can actually hear sort of that intuitive, still small voice inside that wants to guide and lead us a bit. The second E after that is to engage in rebellious new thoughts, right? So we break the negative thoughts. Now we can engage in the new thoughts. It's really hard to add new thinking and new beliefs and new mindsets build up right on top of the old crap, So we really have to undo the crap, the bad code, so we can build you back up with a clear thinking that's really designed around your vision and your dreams that we've already done in the first 2 steps. So we engage in those new rebellious thoughts, and that starts to lead to like actual life change. There's something in the book I call the life change formula of like, okay, this is nice that we're thinking about new things, but how do we actually change our life? And you can sort of see how that gets real practical down in the day-to-day, like what we're doing with our habits. And then finally, L is to let go. The final step is to actually, ironically, let go of the outcomes we established at the beginning. Because we can't be driven by outcomes. Outcomes are good for direction, but we really have to then commit to the process and let the outcomes, like we can't really control the outcomes. We can move towards them, but we let go, hold them loosely, but you also let go of people's opinions. Because with the moment you start to be a rebel, like nobody likes rebels at first. Anybody you can think of, whether it's Martin Luther King Jr. or Apple, or Steve Jobs at Apple disrupting technology and computers. Like nobody liked them at first. Like just stop being different. But then now everybody, Martin Luther King Jr. is a hero, right? Because he like completely changed the civil rights movement in America. And then like you've got Steve Jobs, whether you like him or not, like we're not complaining about our iPhones and our, all that, the digital music thing that was pioneered, but then with the iPod and iTunes, it's like, we like rebels after the fact, once we realize that they were changing things for the better. So just don't be surprised when you start to like move in this new direction. The people around you, even the people that love you, they're going to have opinions. And so part of being a rebel is letting go of those opinions. And in the book, I walk through an exercise of how to craft your own personal values so that you're like, hey, this is what I value. So it's like, I know like a company has like mission values and things like that. You have your own values as a person or a family. So you can hang your hat on those things when people are criticizing you. I get criticized all the time for things I'm doing, even within my business. When I become a rebel in my own business and make changes or go in new directions, customers, clients, audience members, fans are like, "Why are you doing this? Stay the same." I'm like, I can't. I'm evolving. This is where I want to go. So, yeah, resolve to dream again. Establish the outcomes you want. Break the negative thoughts, habits, and patterns. Engage in new rebellious thoughts and habits. And then finally, let go of outcomes and opinions. And if you follow that process, it's amazing where you will end up because it'll be a path that you've decided to go down and you've actually thought about it for once. And the framework kind of just gives you some direction. So it's not just randomly, just get intentional about your life. It really walks you through in a systematic way how to go from 30,000 foot view to like complete life change.
Thank you for that. And if people want to purchase the book and dive deeper into your Rebel framework, how can they do that?
Yeah, you can pre-order the book right now wherever books are sold. You can go to therebelbook.com, and actually I'll have links right there to all the major retailers, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, but therebelbook.com. Definitely go there wherever you pre-order the book because then you can enter in your receipt, and I've got a bunch of bonuses for you, over $300 worth of bonuses. I did an entire master class with John Gordon, who actually wrote the foreword for the book, teaching concepts of the book, so you can walk through a whole training of the book in real time, including a lot of the deep dives that we haven't been able to cover here today before you get the book. I put together a Rebel journal that you can use to actually walk through all these exercises as well, write them out. And then there's the Rebel community. You'll get access to that, and I'm inside of this community, so this will be some like exclusive access to me and some private events that are happening inside the community, especially as we get real close to the book coming out. So you get access to all of that just by going to therebelbook.com.
Awesome. And you had mentioned there prior to that you're starting to make a shift in the direction you're heading. And I heard you on a different podcast talking about how you've made now like 3 substantial pivots in your business. What is the pivot you're currently making? And how did you know when it was time that you had to go a different direction?
Oh, that's a good question. Yes, I mean, quick context, right? My first business was called The Recording Revolution, and it's in the music recording space, and that's how I got into this whole world. And when that blew up, I was loving that for years. And then the next big pivot was I wanted to start business coaching. I had so many people reaching out, how did you build this business? I don't care about music, but I'm interested in the business model. And so I started coaching people for free for a couple of years. And it was so much fun. And I was like, man, I have so many things I want to say about the online business because there's so many idiots out there teaching this stuff that are just like destroying people's lives. And so I was like, I don't have a platform for this. So I launched this personal brand 6 years ago to start teaching business, thinking it would just be an outlet for me. But then it became a really successful business in and of itself. And my desire for that grew. So I went headfirst into that and stepped out of my first company. And then that's been running the last 6 years. And now I'm in this third pivot, this one's more of an evolution than a hard pivot. When I published my first book 2 years ago, How to Get Paid for What You Know, that was like a testing of the waters of, hey, long term, my vision, when I see myself in the future, I see myself as really an author speaker at the forefront of what I do. Always will probably be podcasting and doing the video podcast stuff, but I want to write high thought leadership books that really help people. I think there's something about books that hasn't gone away, and more people are starting to get back to reading physical books even than the digital, which is interesting. But there's something powerful about a book, and books have changed my life. So I was like, I want to add to the catalog of really helpful, useful books. And I love speaking, and I want to get on more physical stages. Remember, I wanted to be a rock star years ago. I miss the live energy. And so digital is great. I can do podcasts like this. This is great, but I love being in a room with real people. And so that's the long-term vision I have. And when the first book came out and I was able to like get a book deal, see the book come out and see it transform lives, I was like, this is working and I like this. And so I'm in this pivot of moving towards, I'm going to be writing more books, more speaking, and then really almost even when you have a business, you're constantly in a feedback loop, right? You're putting something out in the other world and seeing what people think of it, especially if you're in the content space. Like you've got a podcast. You like the beautiful thing is you're always getting feedback of what people think about it. And then you're also getting feedback of what you think about it, because to create and to write things and to talk about things is really to understand yourself more. When I put an episode of the podcast out in the world, I better understand my thoughts on that subject. And so I've been teaching for 14 years now, almost 15 years. And on the business side, I've been teaching for over 6 years and coaching. And so like I have a better understanding of the kind of work I want to do in the world. And so one of the big shifts in this year is like, I want to talk about more than just making money and funnels and the sales process and setting up your business. Although I feel like I've helped thousands of people launch their businesses, I'm really interested in helping them create the life they really, really want, where the business, that includes money. You need to make a certain amount of money to fund your lifestyle. Lord knows inflation's getting crazy. So you need to make money, but really margin, having more time and space to then become the person you want to be and do life with the people you want to do life with. So money and margin are really important to me. And then what this book, Rebel, is all about is meaning. Like I have these 3 marks of a successful business. I think a successful business and successful business owner, there's money in the business, there's margin in the business, and there's meaning and purpose in the business. And you can apply that to you as an individual. You know you're successful in business when you've got enough money, enough margin to do whatever you want, and you know your why. You know why you're doing what you're doing. You're not just doing it because it makes money and you're like, well, I guess I'll stick with it. I really think that'll lead to burnout. I think you have to really love what you do, and if you don't love it anymore, it's okay. There's multiple times I've pivoted. It's just a sign that your desires and dreams are changing. And then you go back to the beginning of the Rebel framework. And what do I dream about? What do I want my next 3 years to look like? What negative thoughts lies I'm believing that are keeping me stuck, even in a successful business? And you go through the same 5-step process for just the next season of your life. And so I'm really interested in helping business owners scale more money, but scale your time, more margin, and scale your purpose, more meaning. And so for me, it's just an expansion, I guess, of what I've been talking about. And I've got more clarity around how I want to teach that. And anytime you pivot, it's hard. Or anytime you expand, it's hard. Because anytime you change, it's hard. Even if you change your website, people are like, I don't like the new website. People don't like change. But the beauty is like I need to keep going where the desire is, because that's where the energy is, and that's where I'll be able to serve people at my highest capacity. If I stay where I was, I could probably phone it in. There's a lot of things you and I could probably phone in and still be numerically successful, but it's just disingenuous to the people we're trying to serve. And it's disingenuous to yourself. Like it's not living in alignment with really what you want. So you're sort of denying yourself, which eventually there's going to hit a wall where resentment will build up, or you'll just be like, I'm done with this, and quit. And then nobody gets helped. So that's part of how I think about it. Probably I know when it's time to pivot, when either I'm feeling bored or I have this idea I just can't shake, and there's so much excitement around it, and I would regret not trying it and pursuing it. And so that's where I'm at right now in this phase.
Mm-hmm. And you kept talking about making sure that you're staying genuine and true to yourself, which I know recently you just did a podcast with it was a podcast with your wife, and you guys had mentioned that you had joined a new mastermind group. And so for me, someone who's been following you for as long as I have and reading your content and using your content, I connect with you so well because you are so genuine. And I know that you're using this stuff yourself. And I had a question for you. As you guys joined this new mastermind, you mentioned that you felt like a little fish in a big pond, and it's important to make sure that you're not the smartest person in the room. I would be curious your initial thoughts and initial feelings when you and your wife first showed up. What separated the 6- and 7-figure entrepreneurs from the 8, 9-figure and beyond?
Yeah, so this mastermind, for context, is 7, 8, and 9-figure businesses only. And so my wife and I are probably the smallest, or one of the smallest businesses in the group. I think the biggest thing is the people in this room have an abundance mindset to the nth degree. as opposed to a scarcity mindset. When you're a six-figure entrepreneur, it is still very possible to have a scarcity mindset. And the way it shows up is like to make six figures a year is a huge accomplishment, especially if it's your own business. Like you would think you would have a level of confidence of like, wow, I climbed this mountain. You know, median income in America is like $48,000 a year, and I'm making more than double that, and I did it on my own. You would think you'd have confidence, and some people do, but what happens is you get to the top of a mountain and you're afraid to fall off, you know? You're like, oh gosh, what if this all goes away? What if it was a fluke? What if the algorithm changes if you're an internet business like me? What if? And I know this because I coach a lot of them, and on the outside, people must think they're successful because they are, but on the inside, they're scared and they're nervous. And when you're not making any money, you got nothing to lose. Like when I was broke and on government assistance, I was trying all kinds of stuff, and everything was the same because I already was scared anyway. So it was like I had this weird, like, I guess I might as well try this because there's nothing to lose. When you have something to lose, you think you have something to lose, you get scared. So that's a way a scarcity mindset shows up, that there's something I could lose. And then what happens is you ironically seal your fate. You plateau in business because you're not creative anymore. You're not innovative. You're just playing not to lose instead of playing to win. And you will seal your fate. You will actually lose because if you don't innovate, it's not going to fall apart overnight, but eventually you'll fade back down. And then people will be like, see, I knew this was going to happen. You did it to yourself. In the rooms I'm in, the number one thing I noticed was like, oh my gosh, these people, they have confidence for days in the sense of like, they both simultaneously think I could take over the world and I could build anything I want to build. And they're coming up with all these ideas. And then they're like, but if that doesn't work, and even if my business falls apart, I would just start something new and I would figure it out. They're betting on themselves. They have a history of creating value in the marketplace, and so they're not so obsessed with their business and the model or the economy being just right. It's really they've like, I've proven that I can do great things, and no matter what the economy does, or no matter what business happens in the marketplace, like I'm still me, and I could go create something new, and that's intoxicating. It was very instructive to me because I went in and it really revealed a lot of my insecurities and my scarcity mindsets that still play with me. And so I've been in this group for a year and a half now, and it's like, wow, in 18 months, I can see my growth of like, dude, I can not only do anything, but even if what I do doesn't work, I would just go build something new because it's just me serving people. It's just me. It's like, the rest of it is just details. What does the business look like? What kind of business? What industry? I don't have to worry about that. I just need to show up and think about how can I add as much value. So I think that's the difference. They have a huge abundance mindset, and they also don't have like caps. They're not like, well, I'm making enough, I'm just going to chill. They don't need any more money, but they want to go create as much. They want to have as much impact. They're like, it'd be like telling a kid, well, you've built a lot of Legos. Like, why do you want to build more Legos? It's like, they'd be like, that's a dumb question. It's fun to build Legos. Like, why would I get to a limit and say like, well, I did my Lego thing. That's how they view business. It's the infinite game versus the finite game. They really want to keep coming up with new offers and trying new things and serving more people. And money is it's a score, you know, and it's just what makes it fun. It's like a measurable, but it's so much bigger than that for them. They just want to keep building and building and sharing and creating. And no one talks about retiring. No one talks about chilling. It's all just, I'm going to create stuff until I die and help people until I die. And that's, to me, the epitome of an abundance mindset.
Mm-hmm. Graham, as we start to wrap up, there's one question I love to ask all our guests, and that is, what is one lesson that you want to share with all the listeners?
I think the lesson would be just to enjoy the process, like enjoy what you're doing. And if you don't know what you enjoy, that might be an invitation to figure out a little bit more about yourself. What do you want out of life? I really believe that the secret to success, how you ever define that, to satisfaction, which is really important because you can be successful but not satisfied, and service to others, which is, I think, the point of being a human is to serve other people. The secret to all three of those, you could sum it up in 4 words. Do it your way. You got to do it your way. And there's no one way. That's the fun part about this world, especially in the world of business. There's no one way to make it work. So you got to figure out how to do it your way. I call that being a rebel, right? That's the language I use, is go your own way. But it's so worth it. And it really is the key that unlocks all three of those doors.
Where can the listener go to connect with you?
Yeah, GrahamCochrane.com. You'll see the latest stuff there. I've got some free trainings. The podcast, The Graham Cochrane Show, is every single week. You can YouTube it if you prefer that. And then the only place to really hang out on social media is Instagram at The Graham Cochrane.
And for anyone listening, I will make sure to put all those links down below in the show notes. I highly recommend checking out Grant's first book as well as his new book, Rebel, that's coming out. If you like this podcast, please like, subscribe, share it with your friends so we can continue to get great guests on here like Graham. So, Graham, thanks for being here with us today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, Chris. Thanks for having me.